Britain's Growth and Development Commission on Fragile States says a paradigm shift is needed to stabilize poor countries. Africa Vaccination Week aims to give everyone on the continent a shot at life. And a hip-hop rising star makes Pulitzer history. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. A new report by Britain's Growth and Development Commission offered a mix of both good and bad news for poor countries. Some of the countries in the report have achieved middle-income status, and places once plagued by conflict and instability have shown signs of improvement. But the report also notes that the number of people living in what it calls fragile states is growing. Viewers, Mariama Diallo has our report.
In presenting the report, the chair and co-chair of the Commission on State Fragility, Growth and Development say money that has been poured into the developing world has been helpful, but has not always solved the problems facing some countries.
The assumption that because there is money, there'll be solutions is one of the things we have to revisit. Money is needed, but in places like South Sudan, actually money could be a problem.
As nations emerge from conflict and instability, moving swiftly to elections may not always be the best solution, says Commission Chair, former British Prime Minister.
South Sudan being perhaps quite a good example. I think part of the international community thought, right, OK, we solved the problem. There's going to be Sudan, a predominantly Muslim country. There's going to be South Sudan, a predominantly Christian country. It's going to have money from aid and oil, and let's get on with elections and it'll all be fine. And, of course, the fundamental settlement between the tribal cleavages in South Sudan wasn't thought through properly.
Tens of thousands of people have been killed in the South Sudan conflict and more displaced in a war that has often been fought along ethnic lines. But fragility is not always related to conflict, says Donald Kaberuka, former head of the African Development Bank.
So fragility is the inability of the state to perform its core functions, from security, delivering services, from education to health. Any state unable to perform its core functions is, by definition, fragile. It could be because of conflict, it could be the environment, it could be simply dysfunctionality like in Haiti.
Kaberuka notes the number of people living in fragile states is increasing and says different approaches may be necessary.
From Syria, Yemen, Libya, the Sahel, Somalia, and the current solutions are not working. Billions of men have been poured into these countries. A lot of attempts have been made, but none of them seems to be working. There are only a few countries which have been able to escape fragility. And therefore, what we're saying here is we need a paradigm shift, we need a step change. It's not always about money, it's not always about conflict, it's multidimensional. And the recommendations we make are fundamentally to put the people of the country in the driver's seat and not have prescriptive approaches to fragility.
Some recommendations focus on local, not international priorities and reconciliation first before elections. Despite huge successes for international development assistance, the Commission says progress remains slow in the most fragile states, where by 2030, half of the world's poor will be living. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, the Kenyan High Court is considering whether or not to repeal parts of a colonial-era law banning sex between people of the same gender, a crime punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Rights groups say the law violates the Constitution and opens the way to discrimination and abuse of sexual minorities. However, homosexuality remains far from accepted in Kenya. Viewers Daniel Schaaf reports from Nairobi.
Religious groups in Kenya have led the charge against homosexuality, but not this congregation. Nairobi's Cosmopolitan Church welcomes members of all sexual orientations. They pray that the High Court will repeal the colonial-era ban on gay sex.
There's a lot of police harassment, blackmail cases. So some people are afraid of coming here because they don't know what might happen. The police can storm in here and wrap people up and go. So removing those laws would give people more confidence to know that they're not criminals and they can be they can be able to associate and mingle and conduct their activities and services without any fear.
The church meets behind closed doors and is rejected by Kenya's Christian establishment, which maintains that legalizing gay sex would be a step towards same-sex marriage.
Kenya, we don't believe in that. Kenya, we are Christians, and we confess firmly that we support a man to marry a woman, not a man to marry another fellow man.
Christian groups argued against the repeal before the High Court.
And the reason we are against this gay sex business is because it poses a direct and immediate danger to the family, to the moral values of the community, to the society.
Gay Kenyans are rarely jailed under the law, but say the fear of prosecution and being outed as gay is often used for extortion. Sex workers are among the most vulnerable.
If somebody is raped, when you take them even to the police station to report, when they're told to go to court, they don't show up because they're afraid, because rape cases, they usually have medias in the court, and then they start asking you questions.
Local rights groups filed the case before the High Court.
The Constitution of Kenya speaks about its values, and part of its values are social justice, inclusivity. And so at some point then we need to question ourselves whether the laws that we have codified on paper are truly inclusive.
It's a landmark case that could allow gay Kenyans to emerge from the shadows or affirm traditional values that most Kenyans see as the norm. Daniel Sheriff, VOA News, Nairobi.
Heads of state from the Southern African Development Community, or SADC, are meeting in Angola to discuss security in the region. High on the agenda is the political situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The special summit will discuss efforts to hold peaceful elections in the DRC and ways to stabilize the country. DRC President Joseph Kabila is not expected to attend the summit. Botswana's new president, Mokgweetsi Masisi, is urging Kabila not to seek another term. SADC has opened an office in Kinshasa to support the country as it prepares for elections in December. Amid rising violence that has forced millions to flee, Kabila has been in office 17 years. He's grown increasingly unpopular. The main opposition coalition in the DRC is calling on the SADC conference leadership to tell Kabila to step down so the country can have a peaceful election. A 25-year-old man accused of driving a van into pedestrians in Canada, killing 10 and injuring 15, is scheduled to appear in a Toronto court on Tuesday. Police are still sorting out a motive for Monday's attack, but Police Chief Mark Saunders says it definitely looked deliberate. Police say Alec Menesian, who is from a Toronto suburb, was taken into custody without incident despite asking the police to shoot him. Late Monday, authorities attempted to ease concerns that his alleged actions might be related to a larger threat.
Events that happened on the street behind us are horrendous, but they do not appear to be connected in any way to national security based on the information available at this time.
The Canadian Broadcasting Company reports government officials say Menesian has no ties to any organized terrorist group. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the incident a tragic and senseless attack and sent his condolences to the victims and their loved ones. A White House statement says the U.S. stands with the Canadian people and pledges to give Canada any support it may need. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook. So check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, an in-depth look at immunization. Stay with us.
This is a country that I chose to become a citizen. I didn't have to become a citizen. I chose to become a citizen.
I feel like America gave me an opportunity to pursue my passion as an artist.
I really believe that clean eating is a way to a more successful life, or a happier life, if you want to put it that way.
One of the things that helps me wake up every morning is doing better, being better.
We grew up poor, and so I'm always focused on helping the working class be able to have a more comfortable lifestyle.
I'm passionate about doing justice every day. I oftentimes say that justice is a verb, not a noun. You know, I believe in action and moving the ball forward.
Well, it's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest immunization news. Lino.
Well, World Immunization Week is underway. It's a global public health campaign to raise awareness and increase rates of immunization against vaccine-preventable diseases around the world. The World Health Organization says the rise of new and underused vaccines is increasing globally. The WHO says global vaccination coverage has stalled at 86%, with no significant changes during the past year. However, an estimated 19.5 million infants worldwide are missing out on basic vaccines. Meanwhile, this year is the 8th African Vaccination Week, held April 23rd to 29, which aims to strengthen immunization programs across Africa. Among other things, by increasing awareness of the importance of every person's need and right to be protected from vaccine-preventable diseases, particularly every child and woman. Now joining us in the studio is Dr. Folake Olayenka. She's immunization team leader of maternal and child survival program with JSI, which is a USAID-funded program. And joining us live via Skype is Guy Bokongo. He's Senior Policy and Advocacy Officer in PATH's Advocacy and Public Policy Program in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. PATH is a leader in global health innovation. Dr. Olayenka, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
And Guy Bokongo, we appreciate you joining us from the DRC.
Thank you.
So let me start with Dr. Folake. It is World Immunization Week. What is the significance and the impact of such a week when we look at global immunization work?
Yeah, thanks so much for that. You know, this is really a very important time that we're able to draw focus on immunization and the power of vaccines. And, you know, setting aside this time allows us to have conversations with a whole range of people, from those who are leading this at country levels, from communities to donors, to all stakeholders, to really re-emphasize the value of immunization, and also to celebrate the achievements that have been made, and also look at the gaps that still remain. So it's really an important time in the year that we're able to bring a focus around immunization.
Very well. And Guy Bokongo, how do we take conversation to action? For example, with Africa Vaccination Week, what is happening in your country?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. This week we have, an activity focused on resource mobilization, and this is an advocacy activity that is going to bring together some decision makers within the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Budget, Ministry of Finance, to come together and other partners to reflect on how DRC can best cover the gap for immunization and mobilize more resources.
And Dr. Folake, resources is so important. Now, we know that governments have a part to play. They have the role to play. The international community also is playing a role. How do we really increase the donors' understanding of strengthening immunization and make immunization a priority in funding?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the greatest ever interventions that we know in public health today is vaccination. And it is effective. Not only is it effective and that it works, it's also cost effective. And we know that there's a huge return on investments on routine immunization. There's been studies that have been done more recently. We find that for every $1 spent on immunization or immunizing a child, there's $16 return on investment. And in addition to that, there's up to $44 in terms of saved cost of hospitalization, but also the ability to contribute to the economic growth of that particular community. So there's a huge return on investment. So when you look at it, for donors, this is a wise investment in terms of being for their funding to go farther. But it is also a wise investment for countries to make in investing to ensure that their populations are healthy and that they survive, but not only that they survive, but that they actually develop and achieve their full potential and contribute to the economic development and growth in that country as well.
So, Guy Bukongo, Dr. Folake just mentioned the importance of vaccination, not only economically for country, but also as a public health measure. Talk to us about the required vaccines for children in the DRC's routine immunization.
Yes, we have 8 vaccines. One of them is the yellow fever vaccine, the other one, the pneumococcal vaccine. We have the, polio vaccine, which is injectable, and the tuberculosis one. We have also a vaccine on measles and oral polio vaccine, but also the tetanus vaccine. So these are vaccines that are used for the routine immunization in DRC.
And what is the current state of immunization in your country? You mentioned the vaccines that are required, but what is the current state? How is vaccines reaching children, for example, in rural areas as well as the city? Tell us about that.
Yes, there are many challenges when we talk about vaccine to reach children in community, because as you know, DRC is big, and children can access vaccine, but there are also some challenges that community faces. But the EPI use, an approach called reach every child where they are, every children, sorry. And this approach helps to define some strategies that help to really make sure that children can get vaccinated, despite the fact that geographical issues and some cultural issues can prevent children to access vaccine. But there are a lot of efforts that are being conducted both at the provincial and national level to help children to access vaccine.
Now, when we look at access to vaccine, in general, we know that health illiteracy is a major problem. And I wanted you to talk to us, Dr. Folake, about the fact that education is a driver when it comes to health inequity. Mothers that are uneducated are most likely not to vaccinate their children for various reasons that we can elaborate. Can you touch on this issue and how it could be addressed?
Yeah, that's a really important issue, because when you look at the inequity in vaccination, there are a couple of drivers that we know. One of them is the mother's education level. Another one is poverty. And we know that these are, what separates those that get vaccinated and those that do not. And so being able to align programs that ensure that a mother gets education as well as ensuring that their means of livelihood is increased are important components to ensuring that children will be immunized equitably. I mean, that is on one side. The other side is ensuring that the services are reaching communities where they are. And this is our ability to use data in ways that help us identify where these unimmunized live, where they're located, and being able to provide flexible approaches that are tailored to the specific context. So for instance, the approach you would use in an urban slum area would be quite different from a rural, remote, and hard-to-reach area. Yes. So again, being able to tailor immunization programs in ways that can reach the target populations are important. So going back to the point on a mother's education, programs that align with the education sector, with the development sector, that allow us to ensure that the mother is able to advance in her education, but also health knowledge as well is important because it transforms not only her own home, but also that of the community. So critical.
Great. And Guy Bokongo, I would like you to talk to us about how Congo is implementing the Addis Declaration on Immunization, which is really something that African countries are trying to implement to ensure that the gap is reduced in immunization. What is Congo doing? What is the roadmap in your country?
Thank you so much for this question. Actually, the DRC has developed a roadmap, and this roadmap is contextualized based on the context and the gap here to be covered. And this roadmap will also be launched today. During the dinner event that I've talked about, and it will help to really see how efforts can be increased to make sure that the Addis Declaration is fully implemented in DRC. And this is actually a great step that the country has made to mention, to demonstrate the commitment, the political commitment to implement this, but also to make sure that each one. All partners, including the government, know exactly where we are going in terms of improving the immunization in DRC.
So then what is the way forward, quickly, before we wrap? Guy?
Sorry?
The way forward.
Okay. After that, there will be another meeting to discuss clearly on which, of the channel of funding from the national to the provincial level. As you know, the DRC is decentralized. The same effort will also be conducted at the provincial level to make sure that provincial governments are also involved in the process of improving immunization at their level.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us from the DRC. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Folake Olayenka, it was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that was Dr. Folake Olayenka. She's immunization team leader of maternal and child survival program with JSI. And Guy Bokongo, senior policy and advocacy officer in Pathways Advocacy and Public Policy Program in the Democratic Republic of Congo, joining us today. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Vincent, back to you.
Thank you. Very good information. Thanks a lot, Lenore. And be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Hip-hop performer Kendrick Lamar shakes up the Pulitzer game. We'll be right back.
Mandela annual lecture. When President Obama was elected as president in 2008, he said he was so elated.
Boxing is now growing up in Nigeria, which is very good now.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Whether it's Islamic-inspired art or lighting for the home, taste a halal snack, or the latest in Muslim women's fashion, The London Muslim Lifestyle Show caters to all kinds of tastes and desires. The show is billed as one-stop shop for Muslim fashion, food and live entertainment, and organizers are expecting about 20,000 visitors from across Britain and overseas over 2 days. According to data from the British Office of National Statistics, there were 2.7 million Muslims in England and Wales in 2011, nearly half of whom were under the age of 25 and 88% were under 50. And sustainability and Hello Kitty were on trend at Sao Paulo Fashion Week. Green and brown earth tones dominated Auskland's As Sustainable as Possible, which included sweatshirts, t-shirts and loose-fitting pants. The Auskland line continues the label's trademark use of materials such as organic silk and recycled cotton. Meanwhile, Samuel Senatsky took the show in a different direction, introducing it with Hello Kitty. Other designs in his collection included gowns and dresses with strategically embroidered designs. According to local media, each piece used an average of 6,000 crystals and took 30 days to be embroidered. Sao Paulo Fashion Week is held semi-annually and considered to be Latin America's biggest fashion event, and that's what's trending today. Well, the Pulitzer Prize, one of the most prestigious honors in American journalism and the arts, has been awarded to hip-hop artist Kendrick Lamar for the music category. His shocking Pulitzer win marked a significant departure, as previous honorees have been drawn from the world of classical music and jazz. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
Rapper Kendrick Lamar's Damn won the Pulitzer Prize for music. It's the first non-classical or jazz work to win the award.
For music, the prize is awarded to Damn by Kendrick Lamar, a virtuosic song collection unified by its vernacular authenticity that offers affecting vignettes capturing the complexity of modern African-American life.
The Pulitzer Board called the album a work that captures the complex emotions of African-American life. Lamar has been praised for his deep lyrical content, remarkable live performances, and his profound mix of hip-hop, spoken word, jazz, soul, funk, poetry, and African sounds.
My left stroke just went viral.
His piercing raps helped him become the voice of the generation and easily ascend as the leader in hip-hop and cross over to rap from rock to pop to jazz.
I have Compton. This is a representation of all of us. This representation of us opening more programs for these kids, opening more job opportunities. That's how I'm looking at it from my own platform.
Lamar is from the Los Angeles suburb of Compton, the home of hip-hop pioneers. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Well, and that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have a good night from all of us in Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When you slip, you fall down. But how does something slip from your mind?
Slip one's mind.
Let's listen to Anna and Jonathan.
Look at this beautiful cake I made for the dinner party.
Oh no, is that tonight?
Yes? Didn't you make something?
No, it totally slipped my